This is Single Status. Hello, friends. Welcome back to Single Status Podcast. I am so happy that you are here with us today. And today's an extra special day because we have my friend Amanda back with us, and she's actually going to interview me on the past 2 years of Single Status Podcast and my Single Status season and everything I've learned. We talk about breakups, we talk about moving on, we talk about all the things I learned in this time and really embracing this season. So there are so many golden nuggets in this episode, and I'm so happy to be able to share the conversation with you. So definitely listen to the whole episode. I really believe that it'll be a blessing for you. And hey, just to remind you, if you don't already, make sure to follow me on TikTok and Instagram. My links are below. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, I would so much appreciate it if you could rate the show, if you could write a review. That's how we grow. That's how the algorithm reaches more people. And make sure to share with a friend. Share with someone that you know this show would encourage. And just a reminder, we're also on YouTube. You can watch all the episodes there. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey guys, welcome to the Single Status Podcast. I'm here with Samantha Vignew.
Hello guys, thanks for having me.
I'm Amanda Williams. We're turning the tables a little bit today. I'm going to interview the host.
Yes, Amanda is back. You guys remember her from a few episodes ago. Did I say that right? Yeah, I did. But yeah, Amanda, I thought it would be good to have Amanda interview me. Because we haven't done that in a minute, and sometimes it's just nice having a conversation with someone rather than talking to myself.
And the people have questions for you, Samantha.
Yes. Well, I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Well, let's hop into it. You started this podcast what was your goal?
So, okay, I cannot believe it's almost coming up on 2 years. Which is so wild, because I remember literally Amanda and I are work buddies. If you haven't listened to the work buddies, that sounded so weird.
We're work besties. I call her my bestie. She calls me a buddy. We're still working it out.
But we're walking buddies. That's what I meant to say at work.
We're walking buddies, work
walking
besties.
bestie buddies.
There you go.
And I remember Amanda was one of those people that helped me or encouraged me to start. Because with starting anything, it's really scary. And especially a podcast, you're putting everything out there. You're being vulnerable. I was very private, especially about dating, about my relationship with, my ex. I was out, and I'm still private about certain things, but I knew I was going to have to, open up and share a lot if I'm doing a podcast episode. So what made me start the podcast was I literally had, all throughout my 20s, I was in a really serious relationship, but to be honest, for quite a few of those years in the relationship, it was really rocky. It was really on and off, and I already felt single for a while, even before I exited the relationship, and I had a really hard time with that. I felt like I was in a kind of isolation season. Okay. For a long time in my 20s, and it was just me and God. I found God at 22, and it was 8 years between 22 and 30 where it was me and God. And I was in a relationship at that time, and there was good memories in that, but it also was a very hard time in my life because the vision I had for my life wasn't panning out and wasn't happening. And so I really turned to God during that time, and I got really involved in my church, and again, I was reading the Bible a lot, and I just really grew in my relationship with God while I was going through that really hard, really tough time. And I just felt like God spoke to me when I found myself single at 30, and he was like, okay, we've done enough pouring into you. Now take what you've learned and pour into other people. And I saw that I knew the pain of being single later in your 20s or early 30s and seeing this life that you want for yourself and this fairy tale that you grew up as a child thinking you're going to have, and then that doesn't happen. Like, I knew that pain. And I also really wanted to like embrace my single season, and I was still learning like how to embrace that. So this was like an outlet for me to pour into others, but also pour into myself at the same time and really learn how to navigate being single, like in my early 30s and everything.
You really started to like hone in on your single season.
Yeah.
But very quickly after you decided that, you started the podcast, right?
Right.
So like what initially had you decide that I'm going to call this my single season and here's what it'll look like? Did you have a vision for it?
That's a good question. I really was just at the point of I really want to learn how to embrace being on my own and loving myself.
Mm-hmm.
And not needing to find that love through a relationship.
Okay.
And I think, yes, I still desire marriage. I know that God has it in store for me one day in a relationship. But to be honest, I think like all of us deal with, you know, so often we look for that love, that unconditional love from a romantic partner. And that can create a lot of like toxic relationships. It can create like dependencies on other people. And, you know, I lived like many years by that, like putting my happiness into, or depending my happiness on like how my relationship was or how my partner was feeling, or, you know, I went through a lot of that, and I just felt like there was a time where I needed to understand how to be okay on my own. Okay. And I didn't know how to be okay on my own. And I don't even know if I'm answering the question, but yeah. I literally felt God speak to me like, we need to learn how to be with just God and learn to love yourself and be okay on your own. And that's what really caused me to like dive into this.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I can see how I've been there where you get to that point where you say, I need to know who I am. Mm-hmm. How am I going to explain who I am to anybody else if I don't know who that person is?
Yeah.
Or do you feel like you're at that point? Do you feel like you've figured out who you are, what you want, what you deserve?
Yes and no, because I think we're always changing. And one day, like today, I could have an opinion about something, and tomorrow I could have a conversation with someone, and my opinion can change. Like, we're always changing, we're always evolving, and I think that's really good. But yeah, I've never, you know, a couple years ago, I thought I was strong, and I thought I was where I needed to be, and I thought I was like feeling whole and complete, but I was really like grieving a lot, you know, still from relationships. And it was more so like speaking things into existence that I wanted, that like where I wanted to be. Yeah. And now I really do feel really set in who I am in a way that I'm not gonna like settle for someone just to be with someone. Like, I know who I am, I know what I deserve, and I'm gonna wait for someone that loves like all of who I am and be confident in who I am. Yeah, I think that might answer the question, but I do want to go back to like the first question too, because I do remember, this is like really vulnerable saying, but I remember seeing someone that was struggling with addiction before a few years ago, and in my mind being like, that's really like hard that they're going through that, and I couldn't imagine being like addicted to something like that. And I felt God confront me in that moment, and I felt like he said like, you're addicted to being with someone.
Interesting. Because
I was so scared of being single. I was so scared of being alone, and that's why my relationship lasted so long in my 20s, because I was holding on so tightly, and I was so scared to start over. I was so scared to be alone. And that conversation changed everything, like that conversation with God, because I felt like it was a wake-up call, like, yeah, you might not be addicted to drugs or alcohol or, you know, something like that, thank God, because that's a horrible struggle that I'll never understand, but you're addicted to this, like, high and this feeling of being with someone, and, like, God was like, we need to learn how to just be comfortable with you and to just be with God, because that is how you have a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That is really what caused me to say, okay, I really need to like embrace my single season, take a break from dating. And you guys know, if you've been listening, I took a break for like a whole year. But I never really opened up or told anyone that, but that was real. I was like, wow, that God's right on that one.
For sure. I think we can get wrapped up in the security of feeling like someone's going to be there or somebody is there. You made the decision to leave your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was in a little bit of a different position where I didn't really have a choice to leave it. I might have been one of those people that stuck in it until. What was that like, taking that leap and deciding like I'm going to be by myself?
Mm-hmm. It's such a good question, because it's so scary because sometimes you end up in relationships and both of you know that it's not working out.
Sure, yeah.
But you're scared to be alone again, and you're scared to be single again. And even if it's a healthy relationship, if it's a toxic relationship, whatever kind of relationship it is, it's scary to step out when you've been with someone for so long and start over. Mm-hmm. Even if in a short-term relationship, it's scary because it's like, oh, like now I'm used to being with this person all the time. I'm used to talking to them all the time. So, I just remember my ex and I were so like back and forth all the time. Okay. And I just told myself, I can't repeat this cycle anymore. Like, this is crazy. I can't do this anymore. And I felt like I knew deep in my soul that I needed to move on and I needed to move forward. And I just felt like I just needed to make a decision. Okay. And I was like, no matter what decision I make, whether I stay or whether I go, like, I am going to trust God with this decision. And I knew in my soul I needed to move forward in the unknown with God. And I think it was a sermon one Sunday where the pastor was talking about Abraham and how Abraham left all the people he grew up with because God told him to go to this new land, like the promised land. Mm-hmm. And he was like in his 70s or something. And I remember thinking like, okay, I'm going to make this decision to move forward in the unknown. And I am going to trust, even if it's hard, even if it's heartbreaking, even if I'm crying every day for the next 6 months or a year, which
Is
probably
that what you did.
Yeah, I probably cried like every day for a long time. But then you start crying less and less over time, and but I said, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to trust that God is going to provide. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I'm just going to trust, and I'm going to stick with my decision. And that's how I ended up moving forward.
That's amazing. That's scary.
It's so scary in the moment.
It takes a lot of courage to understand that you're going to take that step and that you don't know what's coming and you don't know what's next. What made you feel confident that you could trust that God was going to carry you through that season? Was it that story of Abraham? Was it anything else that...
Yeah, I think it did come down to knowing that, to having to decide, because we can say we believe that God's going to provide and be good, but in the moment sometimes it just doesn't feel like that. And I just said, like, I have to believe this. Like, out of desperation, I need to believe that God is good. I need to believe that He's going to provide. And I surrounded myself with people that also were strong in faith. Like, I was not doing this alone. So I got very involved in church. Like we were talking about in our episode, like my work friends, a couple other people at work, if I needed to talk, like I talked to you guys, and some of my girlfriends from college, like I got very open with friends, family, some of my cousins. Like I used that as an opportunity this time in my singleness, not to be alone, but to also reach out to my community. And even if I wasn't talking to them about a breakup, just going on a walk with them, like having coffee, like going out and being in the community, being around people.
Yeah, I think you said something really pivotal there, is being single doesn't mean being alone.
Yes.
Like you can still have people and you get time to pour into those relationships, pour into yourself. You got a dog in that time?
Yes. So so this is funny too. With my ex, when we broke up, we were like on and off, I was like, okay, I'm buying a house. So that was like my that was a big
That
investment.
was your step out on faith.
That was one of my step outs. And after that, we were on and off a little bit too, which was I stepped out to buy a house, and then I dated this guy for like a small minute. That was not good, and you guys know about that one. And then I bought a dog. And then I've been single since then because I needed to pump the brakes and I needed to have my time. But yes, breakup purchases are the best.
Ginny was a win for sure.
Ginny in the house
and
was
your
a
home's
win.
beautiful. What would you share with people that you feel like are a couple of key things that you've learned in this time that you've taken for yourself? It's a loaded question because I'm sure there's a lot of things that you've learned, but if does one thing stand out to you? Do a couple things come to mind?
I think just really the biggest thing I've learned is to really tune in and to really build that intimate relationship with God, to really understand, like, where am I supposed to be right now? Who am I supposed to serve? What church am I supposed to be at? Like, what job am I supposed to be at? Like, really aligning my desires with God's desires for my life. I've really, really been intentional about that because I just want what God wants at this point. Like, I want to be in his will. And then, like we were talking about with community, one thing that I've really learned the past few years is we place so much emphasis on romantic love, but there's so much beauty in the love of two cousins, or the love of best friends, or the love of work besties, or the love of a parent and a child, and how your relationship changes. Like, my relationship has changed so much with my mom over time, or like my grandparents, or, you know, or like even with like some of my aunts. Like, there's so much love all around us, or the random people that you meet throughout life at your church or in your whatever setting that you're in. And those relationships are so precious. And if we really take time to just have those quality conversations and to open up to different people and your friends, and maybe reconnect with people from your past, like, that has been really eye-opening for me in this season. Because again, I think we're trained in America, like through books and movies and TV shows, to always be thinking about romantic love, and it's a beautiful thing. Like, romantic love is awesome and it's beautiful, but there's so much love like all around us too that I think we can miss out on if we don't notice it.
Yeah, I saw a clip of Tracy Ellis Ross talking to Oprah saying we are trained and programmed to think about, as women specifically, what our wedding looks like, what our relationship looks like, what that marriage looks like, not what our life looks like. Yeah. And I think this time, and I know you would recommend taking like solid single status time, whatever that time frame looks like for whatever that person needs, but to just picture what you want your life to look like, not just what you look like as a wife.
Right. Yeah, there's so much more to us. And being a wife and being a mother, beautiful, wonderful things that I want to be one day. But yeah, there's so much more to each person.
Yeah.
And God has us in all these different types of like settings, as friends, as coworkers, as, you know, different like hobbies that we may have, or, you know, there's so many more aspects to us.
For sure. What would you, if you were mentoring somebody and they had just gone through a breakup and they didn't feel like they knew who they were, do you have any recommendations for them? I know you summarized a lot of the things that you've done. Is there one or two things that you say, definitely do these things regardless of the amount of time that you take to be single?
The first thing is I would go back to figuring out what you actually love and what you enjoy and what you want in life. And I think a lot of times a good place to start is what you loved doing as a child or what you were like as a child, and see if you are doing any of those things today, or if you want to like reincorporate some of those things. Like, for instance, I talked about this in an episode a long time ago, like earlier on in my episodes. I was a very goofy, outgoing kid. I loved creating films. I loved creating movies. I also would give like random speeches. Like at my first communion, I was like giving a speech. I was just like a weird, outgoing kid. And I did enjoy, I would make my cousins do movie sets and stuff. And I'd be directing them, but also be acting.
Sure.
So anyway, I'm saying that because I actually I was not on social media at all before I started thinking about doing a podcast. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, okay, I need to get on social media if I'm going to do a podcast. But it's so funny that God led me to social media and podcasting, because literally this is the kind of stuff I really liked doing when I was a kid. I liked all the film, the video. I like putting things together. And like Instagram reels and TikToks and stuff, to me, they're fun, you know? But then also I have a deep side of me that loves also giving encouragement and stuff like that. But anyway, that's just an example of something I liked doing as a child, and maybe just asking God to show you some of those things, like where he's guiding you. And I think that's a good question too. I remember someone at church told us to ask this question, and they said, ask God what he loved about you as a child.
Ooh.
And deep. It was at a time where I was going through a really, really dark time in my life, a really hard time, and I felt I was isolating myself from people. And I wasn't myself anymore. And I remember when I asked myself that question, God showed me as a kid being so goofy and so full of life and so with my family and with my friends, and just that's how I was as a kid. I was very happy, very joyous, and I remember I felt like God say, I want you to bring that back. Like, that's who you are. Mm-hmm. And that really just rocked my world in the moment, because I was like, wow, I lost that part of me. Like, I wasn't as close with my friends. I wasn't as close with my family. I was really isolated. I was like too depressed to be out here talking to people. And maybe I was smiling to people at work.
Sure.
But like on the inside, I was like crying, going to work and going home from work. And, you know, I was really going through it for a while. And asking that question, like asking God, what did you love about me as a child? That was big.
Yeah. Because
then I was like, okay, I need to focus on bringing this joy back. Because I do feel like it's one of those gifts that God's given me as joy. Mm-hmm. I'm just naturally a joyful person. Even in that moment, the darkest times in my life, I still had this like little bit of joy inside of me, you know, that I was holding on to. But yeah, that really helped me start bringing it back and embracing that. But yeah, I don't, did that answer the question?
So if you were mentoring someone, that's the same question you would pose to them, and then help them uncover where they get their joy from. Yeah. And maybe they don't express joy the same way, but there is something that they find joy and fun. Yeah, and getting back to that can really just make you feel like you're back to who you are.
Right. And because I think so often we really stress ourselves out with finding our purpose, especially millennials. We're like, oh my gosh, I need this purpose. I need this calling. Where am I called? Where's my purpose? And I've really realized that our purpose is really living in who we are. Okay. And being fully who God created us to be. That's our purpose in life. So don't put so much pressure on what you're doing, because when you discover who you are and you start slowly living that out and taking little baby steps to live that out, God will just guide you down the path of where you should be serving or what you should be doing,
Right.
or where he wants you to go, because you are so aligned with him and who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So it shouldn't be this stressful thing like, oh, I have to be doing this, I have to be doing that. It shouldn't be like that. It's just who you are, and being aligned with God, and then just following like the piece of where God's leading you. And then all of a sudden you're going to be doing, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about this podcast. I really just stepped more into understanding who I was, and then slowly God guided me to start this podcast. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, whoa, this is what I loved doing when I was a kid, you know?
Yeah,
and
it's like the adult version.
Yeah,
like the upgraded version.
The adult version of what I was born, being like. Yeah. And so, and I'm sorry, my dog is being crazy right now and trying to moon people on YouTube.
Good transition.
Yeah.
What would you, so with your single season dedication, what would you say you're the most thankful for having experienced that?
I'm just really thankful for having time to really understand who I am. I think that it all comes back to that, understanding who I am, having time to have more quality time with like family, friends, community, really stepping into where God is calling me, and really just finding like confidence in myself. Like I've realized even in the past, if I wasn't treated properly or I was allowing people to not treat me properly, now I'm like, I am a awesome person. Like why wouldn't you love being with me? Yeah. You know what I mean? And now and I'm not saying that in like a cocky way, but I'm literally thinking like whoever is going to choose me and I choose them, like he's going to be a lucky guy.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And
count your blessing, Samantha Binu.
But it's like, I didn't realize that before. And now I realize that. So I'm not, so, before I would be worried like, oh, he's not going to like this or he's not going to like that. But now I'm like, no, this is who I am. And the right person's going to love all of that. So
absolutely.
I don't know, that might have come off a little cocky, but now I'm like, I'm so rooted in who I am that I'm waiting for the person that loves that. And I will love everything about them too, You should
be confident in that. And prefacing it by saying that might sound a little cocky is just another way of saying I'm sorry, and we're not doing that this year. So knock it off.
Yeah, again, if you listen to the other episode, Amanda's our coworker that tells us to stop apologizing, which we should. We
get to be confident. It's okay to be confident. It's okay to not apologize when an apology isn't necessary. You can say, thank you for understanding. I appreciate you understanding. Will suffice.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you can say, I'm sorry, 90% less than what you do right now, and no one's going to think that you are any less of an amazing person.
Yeah. Thank you. And just to say one more thing with that, just for whoever's listening, I think the biggest thing I'm trying to say with that is that you are a precious gift to whoever God has for you. So often we think, oh my gosh, what's he going to be like? Or we think that person's going to be a blessing to us, and they will be.
Absolutely.
But you are a precious gift to someone. So just be careful who you give the gift of yourself to, and make sure it's someone that God would approve of and does approve of.
Yeah.
Because you're amazing.
Yeah. Step outside of yourself. And if you were your best friend, would you encourage them to be in that situation?
Yes.
Is that somebody you would encourage them to be with? We get to have that confidence. We get to understand that we are a blessing as much as we are blessed. And that's important.
Amen. Amen, sister.
So that brings me to my next question.
Uh-oh.
What is it? Next for you?
Yes. So Guys, we have some exciting things that are coming up. I feel like I'm in a bit of a transition season. No, I'm not dating anyone yet, but I feel like God is, sprinkling some men out here to choose from. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, maybe.
Hope. No.
It's raining men.
It's raining men over here. No, it's really not. But I do feel like eventually, yes, that the right person will come into my path at the right time. But I do feel like I'm in a bit of a transition season where God is kind of guiding me to some different things. But I'm continuing the podcast. We are not pausing that, but I am working on a rebrand. I don't even know what the name is yet. Maybe by the time this airs, actually, I will know what the name is. But I want to expand to talk about other things. I've talked a lot about single life, and I love it, and I'm still going to talk about dating and single life. However, I just feel called to kind of like expand to speak to other things as well. And I know that there's people that listen that aren't single, that are in relationships, and I kind of feel called to talk about some specific things that would probably make more sense to like change the name. So anyway, I'm working on a name change. I'm working on a rebrand, and I want to launch that early 2025, probably like first week 2025, January. That's or committal. Late December. So
maybe a little Christmas gift.
Yeah, a little Christmas for the people. Gift. Yep. But anyway, so that's what's next. So there's going to be more. It's just going to be a little different. But I just want to say I love you guys so much. I love all the Single Status family. And I just love like hearing from all of you. I love how we've kind of been on this journey together. And that will continue. That will continue with the new name.
Well, we are looking forward to it.
Aw,
it's such a joy to listen to your episodes, to hear from the people that you bring on the podcast. And I think that you're going to be a huge blessing to expand your topics. And I think that it'll cover and apply to a lot more people, too. It'll be super exciting.
Aw, thank you so much. And thank you for all your encouragement and support always. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did with Amanda. It was so awesome having her here on the podcast. I'm so thankful for her. And hey, before we go, we have not done our affirmations in a minute because I have had guests on the show, and sometimes when I have guests, I forget to do our affirmations. So if you are new here, I believe in the power of our words and how they transform our life. So at the end of every episode, I like to do affirmations. So if you could place your hand over your heart and repeat after me. And you can close your eyes if you'd like to. I always like to close my eyes. I am not alone. I am loved and cherished by the Father. And I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. Those always just make me feel so awesome every time I do them, and I hope they make you feel awesome as well. So hey guys, I just want to remind you, make sure if you don't already to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. My links are below. And if you could, if this episode blessed you, if this episode encouraged you, I would so much appreciate it if you could write a review, if you could rate the show, 5-star rating. That's how we grow. That's how we reach more people, guys. So I would so much appreciate that. And just a reminder that we're on YouTube. You can watch every episode there. So hit that subscribe button so you can get future episodes sent right to you. And make sure to share with a friend. Share with someone that you know this show would encourage. Okay, guys, I will see you in a couple weeks.